Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting of Renfrew County Housing Corporation for our annual general meeting to order. Has the roll call been taken?
Yes, it has, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, then could I get a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on June 12th, 2019? Moved by Councillor Regier, seconded by Councillor Grills. Any additions, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, then I will ask for a vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Excuse me. So that brings us to our general business. And we have with us this afternoon, Ms. Karen Black of Scott Rosine Black & Locke for a review of the 2019 audited financial statements for the Renfrew County Housing Authority. Ms. Black, please take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right, so does everybody have a copy of the financial statement with their package?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I could probably put it up on my screen if I could share a screen, if that works.
That would be you.
Okay, well, then I guess we'll continue without him then. So,
Oh, he's back.
He's back.
Karen, like to share the screen if she can, please.
Okay, we should be good to go.
Can you see a financial statement?
Not yet.
Ooh. Now can you see financial?
Now we have it. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Bear with me. This is my first time through on this. All right. So we have our financial statement for December 31st, 2019. It seems like eons ago now. If we continue on, our first page is the management report. So the management report is signed by Paul Morrow and Jeffrey Foss as the treasurer. So basically it states their responsibilities for these financial statements. And one of the main things is that they're maintaining a system of internal controls that provide reasonable assurance that the assets are safeguarded, transactions are properly authorized, and they're recorded in compliance with legislative and regulatory requirements. So this is a report that we see each year. Next report is our independent report. So you'll notice that your reports probably have draft in the copy, and the one I'm showing you here doesn't. So as soon as we're authorized to let this report go, I can print this and send it off to the county building for you. So the second report then is our independent auditors report. It's a nice clean opinion report. So I would just read from the second paragraph. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Renfrew County Housing Corporation as at December 31st, 2019. As we continue on, we have our first numerical page, which is your statement of financial position. So your snapshot in time. So at December 31st, 2019, this is what we had, and we compare it against the 2018 results. So we have cash of $2.8 million, up $635,000 from the year before. These are your cash accounts held at the Bank of Montreal and a smaller account at the Royal Bank in Arnprior. Investments of $200,000, which is one GIC maturing in November of this year at 2.35%. Accounts receivable of $567,000. It looks like it's up quite a bit, but what that is is the county of Renfrew actually flows through funds to you. And at the end of the year, there was still $130,000 of funds to come through to the organization. HST receivable itself was up $44,000 to $311,000. And your tenant receivables were up about $13,000 from the year before, up to $94,000. Included in this amount is a very small amount for your new managed group with the Opeongo Housing Corporation. And also in this accounts receivable, the Opeongo Housing Corporation will owe you some funds, because as you became the new manager for this particular project, there was about $35,000 of costs that were spent, but we didn't receive enough revenues from our income to cover those costs. So those monies will be flowing forward to you. So that's accounts receivable of $567,000. In the financial liabilities area, we have accounts payable and accrued liabilities of $1.2 million. Of that, trade payables is $877,000. Wages payable is $72,000. This is basically for the last 10 days of December were accrued and included in this amount. And then we do have some due to province amounts that we're owing for different programs. Mainly in the early repayments on the home ownership and the Ontario Renovates loan. So as that money is repaid to the county from those participants, it's held there in a due to province account. Next line down is deferred revenue of $85,000. So this is made up of resident rent. So those that prepay their rent, that's about $76,000. And then there was just about $10,000 in revenues that we collected after July the 1st on the Opeongo Housing Corporation's rents, of which belonged to before July 1st when you took over the management of that group. So that money is actually deferred and is truly probably owing back to Opeongo, but will be absorbed in the amount that they owe to you. Accrued interest on long-term debt. Basically, this is the amount that has accrued since the last payment on the mortgages up till December 31st. Post-employment benefits of $173,000. It's made up of your sick leave of $172,000 and a small amount for the workers' compensation accrual of $1,000. It has come down from the year before in that sick leave area where there was 2 long-term employees left during the year. And there was also 1 employee that had utilized a significant amount of sick days during the year. Current portion of long-term debt, $244,596. So this is what we expect to be paid off on your mortgages over the next year. The next line down then is your long-term debt. These are the amounts that will be outstanding after that 1-year period. So the Renfrew County Housing Corporation has 3 mortgages outstanding at year end, one of which had been refinanced in 2019. The new mortgage rate is at 1.96 compared to the 2.435% it was at previously. So total liabilities of $2.8 million and assets of 3.5. So the net difference, we're now showing a net financial asset position of $686,000. So we have switched from that debt position to an asset position this year. Non-financial assets are those assets that can't be used to reduce any of your liabilities. So tangible capital assets being your bricks and mortar, your buildings and land and equipment of $15 million. This year we had $1.1 million of additions, being septic systems, kitchens, security systems and roofing, things like that during the year. The next line down, prepaid expenses of $181,000. So this is your insurance prepayment as your policy runs up to November. So that is entirely what makes up that $181,000. It is up this year, and it will be noted that the premium itself was up about $29,000 for that particular year ending November of 2020. So accumulated surplus at the very end of it is $16,261,886. Does anyone have any questions? All right, hearing none, we'll go on. So we have the statement of operations and accumulated surplus. So this is your activities for the year. First column being the 2019 budget, 2019 actual, and 2018 actual. So we have rental and miscellaneous recoveries, actual of $4.6 million. So it is up about $428,000 over what we budgeted. Rents and recoveries is up for a few reasons. One of the bigger reasons was included in this number now is $122,000 for the Opeongo Not-for-Profit Housing Corporation rent that was collected between July 1st and December 31st. Also, there was a change in the maximum rent beginning of this year, which has caused an increase to rental incomes. So those are just a few reasons why that number is up. Rent support from the province of Ontario, no change from what was expected. And we have our municipal support from the County of Renfrew and the City of Pembroke of $8.4 million versus the 8.6 which was budgeted, down about $194,000. And it's in several different areas, but basically it's going to be capital projects that were down, and Chippy that was down. So these are funds that didn't have to be flowed through from the county in order to meet all our requirements. We have interest revenue of $68,000. This is just on our BMO bank accounts. So total revenues of $14,142,371. We have expenditures then, so our salaries of $1.8 million, down roughly $33,000 from the year before. So it is up compared to the prior year by about 3%, which does make sense. And there was some staffing changes in the admin area that resulted in it being under budget for the year. But the employee benefits, your next line down, is right in line with where we expect it to be at 21% of salaries. So project and administration, next line down, is $1.1 million, down around $50,000 from the year before. Now this project administration includes office, phone, leases, insurance, and the like. Next line down, heat, light, and power of $1.0 million. We're down about $115,000, and basically it's just continued energy saving measures that we've been doing. We've been able to come in under budget for the year. Repairs and maintenance, we are down about $256,000 there. And again, it's all in that capital expenditure under threshold area for projects. Municipal taxes and water. Now this area we are seeing an increase over budget of $62,000, and that is all pertaining to the Opeongo Housing Corporation's insertion in there. So they are included in the actual expenditures, but of course had not been budgeted during the year. We see our interest has decreased a little bit, and basically that was because of that one mortgage that was renewed during the year at a lower interest rate. Next line down is rent support. So this is going to be your rent supplements, Ontario Home Renovates, Chippy program, things like that. So it's about $35,000 greater than expected. These are all basically monies that are sent out into the community for projects. As we go down, the very last line there, loss on disposal of tangible capital assets of $54,000. This is because we did replace a capital roof during the year, and there was $54,000 of undepreciated balance on that particular roof, and nobody pays you for a roof, so there are no proceeds to go against it. So that's the what the loss from the disposal arises from. Total expenditures of $12.9 million on the year, with an annual surplus of $1.1 million. We add that to our accumulated surplus at the beginning of the year to come up with the end of the year number. Any questions? All right. So now we're looking at our change in net financial assets / debt. So we take that surplus that we just talked about. We add back the amortization on the tangible capital assets. We take off what we spent in tangible capital assets, losses, and any prepaid difference to get us to that net financial asset debt number. So as we see there, we have switched from that debt side up to a net financial asset side. And basically, it's all due to having that annual surplus this year. Continuing on, we have our statement of cash flows for the year. So it's taking your accrual-based financial statements and changing them back into a cash basis to show you basically the uses and sources of your dollars and where they're spent, and to get you to what the cash in the bank is at the end of the year. So now continuing on, we have our notes to our financial statements. On this first page of notes, we have had really no changes to the notes during the last year. I'm going to continue flipping till we get to some. Okay, so we talked about accounts receivable already, where we said that there was HST receivable of $311,000. So this is just breaking down that accounts receivable into a format that's understandable. Post-employment benefits, we've already spoken about the sick leave and the drop in the sick leave amount. Now, note B here of this post-employment benefits is new. It's just an increase or making the note a little larger and more to explain more about what's going on. So the Workers' Compensation Board is done by an actuarial evaluation, and it was done for December 31st, 2018's year end. And in those in-between years, between valuations, there is an estimate done of what the accrual should be. So in this particular year, we're in year one of the estimate. So we have, based on what the actuary has said, this particular corporation has a very small workers' compensation liability outstanding of just over $1,000. So it's just showing you the expense that we recognized in the financial statement, those benefits we already paid, physically paid, to get to what the accrual will be at the end of the year. So we have one more year of an estimate, and then in the following year, we'll be looking again to get another valuation done to see how close we are. Long-term debt, we've already talked about our long-term debt. Now the first loan is the one that was renewed this past year, and it only will run for next year end and the year end after, and will be completely paid off by that time. So tangible capital assets is note 6. And this particular schedule is showing you where your assets were purchased and in the different categories. In that last category, this is a different kind of category. So it's assets under construction. Those assets that haven't quite finished and become complete and put into the pool. If they're not complete, we're not taking any depreciation on those assets. So they just sit there. So at the end of the year, there was $5,236 in that particular column, and all that was a well that's being done at Palmer Rapids that wasn't quite completed at the end of the year. And then our next set of notes, we have note 8, accumulated surplus. So this is the part where it shows us how that accumulated surplus number is split, what we're utilizing it for. So we have reserves set aside for working capital and for workers' compensation of $198,000. Then we have reserves for all our capital items of $2 million. The amount of surplus that is being utilized by those tangible capital assets we have set up. And then those items that we have to fund still in the future, our long-term debt and our post-employment benefits. We have some commitments still outstanding with regards to office space outside of the county building. As of right now, we are still under those existing agreements. So this is how we see it playing out if everything was to stay as is. Ontario Clean Water Agency is a contract that we have that is a long-term contract. So it is also shown. And then we have some snow removal contracts that just fall out of that season, which end, April of 2020. Now our next note that's new this year is note 13, which is the management agreement. So I've already talked about the Opeongo Nonprofit Community Residential Development Corporation, and they're coming into your group as being managed by us. So included in your statement of operations are those following items that are with regards to that management agreement. So if they were pulled out of your numbers would be smaller by just that amount. As you will see, we have no effect on your financial statement, as the annual surplus on this particular account is at 0. The very last note is a new and improved special note with regards to COVID-19, and it's a requirement now on any audits or reviews that we report on any conditions that are going to happen with regards to COVID-19 and your corporation. So that's your financial statement. Does anybody have any questions I can answer at this time?
Well, thank you very much, Karen, for that excellent presentation. It's nice to see that our finances are looking fairly good for the Renfrew County Housing Corporation. I have in front of me now a recommendation that the Renfrew County Housing Corporation recommends to the Social Services Committee and County Council that the Auditor's report for the Renfrew County Housing Corporation for the year ended December 31st, 2019 be approved. Could I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Grill, seconded by Councillor Reinwald. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, then I will ask for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Item number 2 is the appointment of external auditors. I have a recommendation that the Renfrew County Housing Corporation recommends to the Social Services Committee and County Council to retain the auditing services of Scott, Rosine, Black & Locke, Chartered Accountants for the year 2020. The background is there as well. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this recommendation? Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Aguirre. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. And final recommendation. Or I guess it's not a recommendation, but it's the General Manager's Annual Report, which is attached. Carol, are you with us to just go walk us through that report?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Brose. And a special thank you to Karen Black and her group as they did the audit in all 3 of our offices. And they're a very professional team, and staff very much appreciate their input and being able to assist them through the phases of the audit. So thank you, Karen. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the Renfrew County Housing Corporation AGM General Manager's Report for 2019. It is my pleasure to provide to you just a high-level overview of the AGM document. The General Manager's report, as you know, serves as a piece of history with some of the highlights of 2019. As we were putting this report together, it was hard to think back to 2019, believe it or not. It was a year that went very fast, and we had many challenges during the year, as we seem to every year. That seems to be my line when I deliver the report. Yet we still achieved some great outcomes, and we helped many folks along the way, making a difference one person at a time. So at Renfrew County Housing Corporation, we seem to have three big changes. We had the renovation at Renfrew County Place, which provided us an opportunity for 3 offices to become one, bringing childcare, housing, and Ontario Works into one office, allowing us to serve our people and our communities better. And then the fact that Opeongo chose the County of Renfrew through the Renfrew County Housing Corporation to manage their operations of their 42-unit family complex. And although we converted our rent geared to income application management system over to the Rent Cafe application in 2018, it was very late in 2018. So 2019 has been a challenging year trying to get that program under our wings, and for our 2 staff who manage the registry to get to know what that program does for us and how we can use it and provide us with our stats and the information that I provide to you on a regular basis. The General Manager's report begins on page 7 of your package. And as I move through the report, I want to remind you that the information within the document is not new. It's all a review of the highlights of the year that I've already given to you. So on page 3, you'll find a message from myself regarding the 2019 year, which is then followed by the introduction. And on page 6 of the report, you will see the names associated with the Renfrew County Housing Corporation Board of Directors. That page is then followed by the organizational structure of Renfrew County Housing Corporation. And you can see with just over 30 staff, Renfrew County Housing Corporation manages 978 social housing units throughout the County of Renfrew, and property manages the 42 units of the Opeongo nonprofit. Pages 8 through 10 highlights the social housing registry. And it's interesting to note that we had a number of changes in our stats throughout 2019. And most of that is a result of the new program that we're using called Rent Cafe. So to manage the rent geared to income applications going with Rent Cafe, we don't have the high number of duplications, multiple duplications in this program. So we've seen a drop in the numbers. As well, you will recall in December of 2019, we issued around 1,500 updates. And as a result of those updates, we have less applications, active applications situated in Rent Cafe. The updates were issued because of the ministry change in regulations where each applicant, when being housed in the new year, in January 2020, would only receive one offer of housing. So they then needed to choose where they really wanted to live. So instead of checking off every municipality in the County of Renfrew for a 1-bedroom unit, now some people are only choosing one place so that when they do get the offer, it's where they really truly want to be. So that has had a huge impact on our wait list. Also interesting to note is that we experienced less than 100 move-outs with Renfrew County Housing Corporation. And it's not unusual for the Renfrew County Housing Corporation vacancy rate to look similar to the private market. And I think we're all experiencing this information in the private market as well. The vacancy rates are extremely tight, and they're getting tighter. As we move on, page 11, property management report. And you will note that Renfrew County Housing Corporation is not just about administering rent geared to income housing, but we are also able to administer a variety of programs under the direction of our director, Laura Lepine, where we're able to offer programs such as homeownership and emergency minor home repair, and provide rental allowances to bridge that affordability gap for folks. At the bottom of page 12, you'll see a picture of our staff, and that was taken at our annual staff meeting in June of 2019. As we flip the page, we move on to page 13, and you have a chart showing our deposits and withdrawals from our capital reserve. And you'll see that 2015 reminds us of our fire at 41 Vimy. That'll be there for a few years. We move on and we talk about the Asset Planner. And as you know, Asset Planner is an application that we use to build upon our building condition assessment information. And it helps us to plan for our not only capital planning, but also for operational planning as well. So it enables us to make better decisions with the money that we have to expense on our social housing units. Page 14 is an overview of the Renfrew County Housing Corporation portfolio by municipality. Page 15 provides you with an overview of our rent supplement program, the number of units that we're currently subsidizing within our GI rent. You'll note at the bottom of that page, I have a little note there that our Strong Communities Rent Supplement program will be ending in 2023. And that's something to keep in mind. Although we are seeing other programs coming out from the province through the partnership with the federal and provincial National Housing Strategy. So we have our Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit as an example. Pages 16 through to 22 highlight the programs related to the investment in affordable housing for Ontario. Charts are provided that show the programs that were funded and how much money the County of Renfrew was able to invest in our local communities, as well as the number of households that we were able to assist. Very popular programs such as Ontario Renovates, housing allowance programs. We also had capital funding that was provided for affordable housing and our home ownership program. Next, although not new money, but a new name, the County of Renfrew through Renfrew County Housing Corporation distributed funds that were allocated through the Canada-Ontario Community Housing Initiative and Ontario Priorities Housing Initiative, nicknamed OPI and COCHI. So these programs are to support capital repairs and safety-related expenses. And this money was provided to ourselves, Renfrew County Housing Corporation, as well as our housing providers. Page 24 highlights the Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative, which aims to prevent and address the reduce homelessness. This money funds items such as the HPP program, which is administered by our partners at Ontario Works. It's also used as a short-term rental allowance program, and it also does such things as emergency minor home repair by providing up to $5,000 for folks to help them remain in their home, doing things such as ramps or renovations to their bathroom so they can get in and out of their tub easier. And the final page, 2016, indicates what's upcoming in 2020, including the simplification of rent calculations for RGI, the one offer for housing that came into effect January 1st, the service delivery improvement project that's happening at throughout the County of Renfrew, as Renfrew County Housing Corporation will be moving into the County Administration Building. We also have our Canada-Ontario Housing Benefit that just came out, and we have the announcement of our online Rank Your Income application. So at this time, I would sincerely like to thank all of our Renfrew County Housing Corporation employees for the great work they do every day. It is the work that they do that is making the difference and supports our purpose, providing folks with a place to make a home. On behalf of Renfrew County Housing Corporation staff and myself, I would like to thank you, the Renfrew County Housing Corporation Board of Directors, as well as our Director of Social Services, Laura Lapine, for your support and guidance throughout 2019. Prior to the conclusion of this report, I would also like to acknowledge Wendy Hill. So Wendy was the Renfrew County Housing Corporation admin assistant. And without Wendy, I would not have been able to get this report to finalization and completion and having it before you. So big thank you to Wendy. And I also want to extend my thanks and appreciation to the Finance Department and the Treasurer of Renfrew County Housing Corporation, Jeff Foss. In 2019, we had some hurdles with staff, so the Finance Department was right there to help us and assist us right along the way. So thank you. That, Chair Brose, concludes the 2019 General Manager's Report for the AGM.
Thank you very much, Carol, for a very thorough and detailed report. I will ask the committee if they have any questions or comments on your report. Seeing none, do we have to have a recommendation from committee to accept the report? Okay, so we don't need that. All right. Then we will move on to new business. Are there any new business items that committee would like to bring forward? Seeing none, then we will move to adjournment. Can I have a mover and a seconder to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Giacono, seconded by Councillor Grills. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Corporation meeting. I will call it to order. I assume roll call has been taken. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Seeing none, then can I have a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on June 10th, 2020? Moved by Councillor Giacono, seconded by Councillor Grills. Any corrections or omissions? Seeing none, then I will ask for a vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. We have no delegations at this time. So once again, I will ask Carol for her director's report. Oh, I'm sorry. We will ask Laura for the director's report.
Thank you, Chair Bros. Good afternoon, members of the Renfrew County Housing Board of Directors. My report is on page 2, and I have an information item for you. And it is attached as Appendix 1 is a memorandum regarding change with the Protecting Tenants and Strengthening Community Housing Act 2020. So this is information for you to let you know of some of the changes that have come forward as a result of this new legislation. And that, Chair Burrows, concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Laura. Any comments or questions on that lengthy report? Seeing none, we will then move to the General Manager's monthly report. And that, I believe, is Carol.
Good afternoon again. My report begins on page 11 of the electronic copy, and beginning with information number 1, applicant tenant issues. So we're highlighting information as at June 30th, and this is through our Rent Cafe program. So this is the number of community housing registry waitlist numbers that we have as of June 30th. New applications, 38. Total eligible applications, 469. Total number of applicants are 480. Within the Renfrew County Housing Corporation portfolio, we have 51 applicants that are requesting a transfer for one reason or another. And we have 25 special priority applicants. Those are folks that have experienced domestic violence. The following chart is the number of applications that we have as of June 30th. And then that is further broken down by the bedroom size. Also attached to the report is a comparison wait list. And unfortunately, because of the change with our application program, the comparison wait list will not be as relevant. It will get more relevant as the time goes on and the information is more consistent. The numbers that I'm giving you are consistent. The next chart are the move-ins and move-outs and transfer comparison for June 30th and move-ins for July 1st and any internal transfers. Tenant issues, which appear to be none, is because we have not been issuing any N4s or L1s for rent payment. At this point in time, we continue to issue a letter reminding folks if they haven't paid their rent, and we continue with phone calls. We're actually in the midst of trying to make mediated agreements with our tenants who have not been able to pay their rent. Under number 2, financial, the operating budget is attached for your reference. There are no red flags at this point in time to highlight. We are looking at the May report. So once we get into September's meeting, I will probably have a more detailed financial report to provide to you. The current tenant arrears is attached as an appendix. And if we take a look at the arrears report, you can see that our arrears are climbing. We have 16 tenants on par with some sort of an arrears balance. We have 19 in Renfrew and 55 in Pembroke and area. So we have a total of 90 tenants with some sort of rental balance, rental arrears balance, whether that be rent, maintenance, or miscellaneous. We did provide 75 adjustments. So those are reductions in rents for folks who had income that was reduced. Returning back to the report, I am now on page 13 under number 3, which is COVID-19. So this is just to provide you with an update as to what's happening with Renfrew County Housing Corporation during COVID. And as you are aware, our offices remain closed, although we are fully staffed and able to assist our tenants and public with any of their housing needs and any of their inquiries that they have. Now that we are resuming normalized operations and getting back to some of our regular business practices, we are sending out our annual information returns, and we're going to be testing those new simplified rent calculation methods that has been introduced by the ministry. And I'm being told by staff it's not quite as simple as they have promised us. So stay tuned to that one. Communication tools such as bulletins and newsletters and posters are still being widely circulated to our tenants. And we also share this information with our housing providers so that they can share as much information as possible with their tenants too. And just to let you know, the 3 playgrounds that were closed have been reopened, and they do have the appropriate COVID signage at their gates. Another thing that I'd like to bring to your attention is the community outreach that we've had with our residents, as well as with our housing providers and partners in the community, whether they're affordable housing providers or they're our nonprofit partners. We, through the direction of our Director of Social Services and her support in providing $25 gift cards to the households to assist them during this most difficult time, and thanks to some dedicated staff in getting those cards out to folks, we've received a number of thank yous. I don't know if you can see these. We have thank you cards. We've had numerous phone calls into the office from our tenants and housing partners just to say thank you and thank you for thinking of us at this time. So it was, it put a big smile, and still does every day because they're coming in every single day. A big thank you, or big smiles on our staff faces. Item number 4, online applications. This is a good news story. So currently applicants applying for rent geared to income housing can acknowledge their interest in housing by filling out a paper copy, or they can that they can print off from our website, or they can pick up at one of our offices, whether it be Renfrew County Housing Corporation or one of our nonprofit providers. We can throw an application, a paper application in the mail to folks, and now they have an opportunity to actually go onto the website and just log in, make their own or create their own login, and they can complete an RGI application from their living room now. This is a a really interesting process for us. It took a little bit of timing on our part to get this done. Online application has been available for our use previous to Rent Cafe, but it was not very user friendly. So we chose not to use it. The Rent Cafe online application system is very user friendly. And I think that it will be beneficial, not just only for our applicants, but also for our team here at Renfrew County Housing Corporation. And the last item, item number 5, the Housing and Homelessness Plan. So as you know, Renfrew County Housing Corporation and the County of Renfrew, we were required to do a 10-year housing and homelessness plan, and that was adopted in January 2014. And as part of that plan, every year we produce a report card. So attached for your information is the report card for Renfrew County Housing Corporation 2019 year. Not for Renfrew County Housing Corporation, but for the 2019 report card on housing and homelessness in the County of Renfrew. And I'd just like to bring to your attention some of the changes over 2018. So in 2019, we had, I'm recording 121 households housed from the social housing wait list. Now, I know that's different than what I spoke to you earlier about, because I said there was less than 100. There's a less than 100 for Renfrew County Housing Corporation, but don't forget our wait list covers the nonprofits and our rent supplement program as well. So in 2018, it was 114, and in 2019, 121. In 2019, 137 households were assisted through the Chippy Rental Allowance Program, versus in 2018, it was 125. And I'm sure, as you all know, our average market rent for a 1-bedroom unit has creeped up from $711 to $744. So those are just some of the highlights. The back page of the 2019 report just gives you an overview of some of the information that's already been provided to you throughout the year. So that, Chair Bros, concludes my Renfrew County Housing Corporation Department report, highlighting some of the previous months or previous 2 months activities.
Thank you very much, Carol. So going back to the beginning of your report, item number 1 is the Rent Cafe housing stats. Are there any questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry, Jed. Councillor Reinwald. Missed you
Hello there. Are we at 1B?
Yes, we can be.
Okay. Yeah. Just through you, Charity Councillor, or to Carol. I'm just wondering if the sending of the letters and/or phone calls to the individuals, how is that working in comparison to the issuance of the, all the end series notices? Have you noticed anything positive or negative about this, or it's somewhat the same?
Through you, Chair Rose, to Councillor Reinwald, our arrears are climbing. The letters are not being responded to as positively as they were in the first couple of months. So that's where we're seeing some climbing of the arrears for sure.
Okay. Just to follow
Sure. Supplementary, yeah.
Yeah. The reason I asked that question, it's nice if you can apply a minimal amount of pressure in order to get what you want, but obviously that's not working. So I guess back to square one. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Any other questions on item number 1, A or B? Seeing none. Item number 2, the financial operating budget. The capital budget, item B. I just had a question, Carol. The capital budget I know you had to delay some of the work because of COVID. Do you anticipate any problems completing everything on your list, or are things moving along quite well?
Thank you for that question, Chair Bros. And I kind of neglected to highlight the capital budget, and let me go back to that one. So the capital budget is rolling along quite nicely right at the moment. 2 months ago, I would say we were having some issues and that COVID was going to be the excuse. Right now, we are moving forward, and things are moving along quite well, surprisingly. We're actually receiving some really good pricing in our tenders and our quotes. One item just closed this week, actually, and the pricing was very favorable to us. So we may see a surplus at the end of the year in that area if we don't have too many unplanned jobs come up. And in speaking about unplanned jobs, I do want to bring to committee's attention one item that did come up over the summer. And we had to go to the warden and the chief administrative officer to get an approval to defer one of our jobs in our capital, which was a 63 Russell Street capital repair job, so that in order for us to complete the balcony repairs at a Burwash. Unfortunately, we found some further deterioration in 2 balconies, which equals 3, because we had 1 single and 1 double balcony that required new pan and new beam. So as you can anticipate, that was quite expensive. We anticipated that cost to be close to $100,000. And the best way to achieve that without dipping into our reserves was to postpone a job at 63 Russell Street that we felt that could be deferred until the 2021 budget. So that was approved by the warden and the chief administrative officer. Thank you for letting me go back and explain that one. So back to the original question, yes, things are motoring along, and I understand from our capital works gal that we should be looking very good before the end of the year.
Thank you, Carol, and glad to hear that you're having success with contractors and pricing as well. I was concerned that maybe with the slowdowns during COVID, they would all be so busy that you might not even get any bids. So that's good news. So the current arrears, any comments or questions on that? Moving along then to item 3, which is the COVID-19 update. Seeing no comments or questions. Item number 4, actually item 3B, the community outreach. I just want to say thank you to your staff, Carol, for providing those much needed emergency funds and gift cards to those residents that certainly I'm assuming appreciated that extra support. Item number 4 are the online applications. I think this is a great example of how COVID sometimes forces us to make changes that maybe would have taken a little longer. And here was an opportunity for utilizing the internet to, bring forward a much more effective service. And are a lot of your residents, Carol, maybe if you could just give us a little feedback, are they getting comfortable with this process? You said it's fairly straightforward and easy to follow.
As of late last week, we had 22 applications being processed through the online application at Rent Cafe. So, and we haven't even done any news release at this point or engaged Michael Barber to do any push out on Facebook or Twitter. So once that happens, I think we will see a very positive review of our online application process.
Thank you again, Carol. Moving on to item number 5 then is the housing and homelessness plan. Any questions or comments from committee? Seeing none, then I'd like to thank you, Carl, for your report. Are there any new business items? Seeing none, and we'll move to item 9, which is closed meeting, which we have none at the time. The date of our next meeting will be Wednesday, September 9th, 2020. And can I get a mover and a seconder then to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Arrears, seconded by Councillor Reinwald. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, then can I get a mover and a seconder for the adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on June 10th, 2020? Moved by Councillor Love, seconded by Councillor Reinwald. Are there any additions, corrections, or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor to adopt the minutes? Thank you. That motion is carried. We have no delegations at this time. So then we will begin our Social Services Department report. And that's Laura. Please, Laura, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Bros. Welcome again, members of Social Services Committee and managers and guests. My report begins on page 2, and I will start with an information item. Number 1, OMSA did a survey back in July with the service managers regarding the post-pandemic human resource planning. This is an ongoing conversation that OMSA has with different groups that they hold throughout the month, where post-pandemic planning is being discussed on a regular basis. But they did do a formal survey, and the results are attached for you to take a look at and see where different service managers in the province and the district social services boards up north, where they are in terms of recovery and how they're coming back to business as normal. Interesting, we are very similar to many other service managers within the province. Item number 2 is the 2020 planning allocation. So attached as appendix 1 is a letter dated July 7th from the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services confirming the Ontario Works 2020 planning allocation. It is also including the one-time business case approval. We spoke about this in the June committee. We were waiting for formal authorization from the province, but we have received the additional funds to assist us with the service delivery improvement project, which is the renovations at Pembroke County Admin Building, which will allow all of our social services in Pembroke to move into this building. So this was a business case that was approved by the ministry. It was, we were not sure that we would have this approval. We were fortunate last year to receive approval for the same amount of money for our human service integration plans at Renfrew County Place. So I want to take this opportunity to thank both Chair Bros and Warden Robinson for lobbying very hard at Roma earlier this year, because I think at that point in time, this was very high on our agenda and it was well spoken to. I think it made a big difference in the ministry approving. I also want to thank Andrea Patrick for writing a very compelling business case to the ministry for this funding. We are, again, a very small number of service managers in the province receive this funding, and we are extremely fortunate to receive it 2 years in a row. So I'm very happy that we have it, and it will help with our planning with the Service Delivery Improvement Project. Item number 3 is Social Services Relief Fund Phase 2. As committee may recall, back in March, the Premier announced social services relief funding in the amount of $200 million, which would be flowing through to service managers in the province to help with some of the relief needed due to COVID-19. Another announcement came through in July announcing that there will be a second wave of funding in the amount of $150 million. I can tell you that as recently as yesterday, the regional representative for the ministry has confirmed that there is no news yet on how much or when this is going to flow to us. So we are still awaiting the details on this fund. And once we have that information, I'll be sure to bring it to committee. We are still working with the social services relief funding that we received earlier in the spring. That money is to be spread out until the end of March 2021. And this new funding will give us, depending on how much we receive, give us more opportunity to help more people and provide more programming. Because as we all know, there has continued to be impacts to low-income people in Renfrew County due to the COVID situation, and we haven't seen the end of it yet. So we don't really know all of what the impact is going to be. So additional funds is greatly welcomed. Item number 4, you will see attached, it's support of universal basic income resolution. You'll find 2 resolutions attached, one from the town of Gore Bay and one from the municipality of West Elgin, and it's identifying their support for universal basic income. You may recall back in June, we had attached the resolution from the city of Kitchener, who also had support and was lobbying the federal and provincial government to consider a universal basic income. And back in June, committee had asked that we come back to this meeting with some information on how a universal basic income may impact residents in the county of Renfrew. So I do have a little bit of information that I would like to share with you. So just to make sure that we have the same definition, there are many different views on what a universal basic income is, but in general, a basic income consists of a periodic cash allowance given to citizens without a means test to provide them with a standard living above the poverty line. So what's happening with these resolutions? Back in 2018, the Office of the Parliamentary Budget Officer did a report, and it was called Costing a Guaranteed Basic Income. And it was the 2018 Parliamentary Budget Office report, and then recently Costing a Guaranteed Basic Income during the COVID pandemic, which was a report done earlier this year. It is becoming very much a worldwide interest. Many countries in the world are looking at what a universal basic income program would look for them. And there are many different ways it can be delivered, and there are many different types of programs. Generally speaking, funding for basic income or universal basic income is likely through a combination of taxes, usually federal, provincial, and municipal taxes. And the majority of models suggest that this be how it's funded. In the reports by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, you will, if you do have a chance to check it, it is worth taking a look at. It does speak to the cost being higher than what social assistance costs today. However, I think it's important to recognize that there is a difference in the number of people that will be served. I will say that, you know, it is a difficult conversation from what I'm understanding from other service managers, because being a tax-based program with the economy the way it is, it may be a very difficult time to be looking at this. However, we do have some examples in the province of Ontario. Back in 2017, under the former Liberal government, they introduced the Ontario Basic Income Pilot, and that lasted until April 2018. They had sites moving on this, and they had set some parameters, which would be anybody that was single that was under 16,000, almost 17,000 a year would qualify, and any family which would have an income of just under 24,000 would qualify. So those were kind of the baselines as to who would qualify. And anybody who had a disability would receive additional funds on top of that. And the way the program ran was that if folks received the basic income and then had earnings through a job, they would get a reduced amount of basic income. But the idea was that they would have a certain funding level that would allow them to manage and pay their bills. So what about the County of Renfrew? Where do we fit in terms of how a basic or universal basic income would look here? So we took a look at our 2019 combined Ontario Works and Ontario Disability caseload, and we have just under 5,000 cases in the County of Renfrew. This is based on the statistics that the ministry provides to us through our SAMS program, Social Assistance Maintenance System. So if you look at the Ontario Basic Income Model, the average earnings in Renfrew County for 2019 was around $46,000. So with an approximate population of just over 100,000 people in the County of Renfrew, approximately 29% of the residents would have an income of $15,000 per year or lower, which would mean that we would have approximately 34,000 plus or minus people who could technically be eligible for a basic income. So that's a big difference from what we have in terms of the Ontario Works and ODSP caseload. You know, the basic income is much like the Canada Emergency Response or Relief Benefit, and it is definitely providing a social safety net to help people meet basic living costs. It is seen in other reports prior to COVID-19 that a basic income also helps assist with the local economy because there's more money flowing into the local economy, more funds being used locally. However, we are seeing with COVID that while we have a significant number of people in Canada and most likely in Renfrew County, I don't have the numbers of folks who are on the what's called the CERB, Canada Emergency Relief Benefit. Our economy is not showing improvement because of this benefit, and that could be because of the COVID and some of the other parameters. It is definitely not able to repair, sustain, or grow our local economy at this time. So I think, you know, in terms of what we have in front of us information-wise is that we do have a significant number of people in Renfrew County that should a universal basic income be brought forward, we would have a significant number of people who would benefit from a higher level of income to support them and keep them above the poverty line. And that, Chair, is the information on that piece. I'm going to move to item number 5, which is Protecting Tenants and Strengthening Community Housing Act 2020. And this is just some correspondence from the Honorable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, regarding, again, the Protecting Tenants and Strengthening Community Housing Act. It's a bill that was passed. There's many different components of this bill, and it does impact housing within the County of Renfrew. Item number 6 is temporary pandemic pay. And attached as Appendix 7 is a correspondence from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing confirming that the County of Renfrew will not be receiving funding for temporary pandemic pay under the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And that's because the supportive housing and emergency shelter sectors are the only covered areas. These must be for employees who are working in supportive housing or emergency shelter funded through the local service manager. The County of Renfrew has no we have no employers in that situation. So we don't qualify for the funding. Attached as item 7 is the Treasurer's report. I will identify that a review of the report does not show any red flags on any of the Ontario Works, social housing, or childcare budget lines. Everything is moving as planned. Given that we have COVID and we have some additional expenses, we have been managing budgets very well. I commend the managers for how they are managing the budgets and reallocating funds to where it's most needed. And that, Chair Brose, concludes my report.
Thanks very much, Laura. And so I'd like to move back to the beginning of your report. And item number 1 is the OMSSA survey results summary. Are there any questions or comments from committee? I had one question, and I'm just curious, because of COVID, once again, staff had to make adjustments and provide flexibility in their work schedules, some working from home, some working different hours. Is there any plan that you're aware of? And I know from the results of the survey, some of the other service managers, I guess, are looking at different ways of doing business moving forward, because I believe there were some successes identified through the flexibility that was required during the pandemic. And I'm just wondering if that's something that maybe our senior leadership team might be looking at to become more permanent moving forward.
Thank you, Chair, for raising that question and making that comment. Here at the County of Renfrew, we do have a working group that is looking at reopening plans and how that will be impacted and affected with here in the County of Renfrew. We meet regularly and we look at some of the best ways to deliver service.
Thank you very much, Laura. Yes, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee, maybe just to add a little bit to that, to Laura's response, which is bang on. At a higher level, we also have the service delivery review underway. And that project in itself is taking into account the changes we've made with COVID, and many of those things we found to be successful in terms of work accommodations that we will bring forward in the future. The other component of that is the service delivery improvement project, and that is the rebuild of this facility that I'm in. I think Laura's here too. And as part of that rebuild, we are taking into account those accommodations and the things we've done for COVID-19 that we hope to continue on. So things like workspaces, all those types of things where we found success, we'll be incorporating that into this new facility as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Paul. And I guess from my point of view and question is that with the services integration that will happen here at the county, will that make it easier for accommodations if in fact some of staff have that flexibility option to do part or a portion of their work from home or a remote location?
You know, thank you, Chair. Through you to committee, I think either one of us can answer that question, Laura. You know, within Laura's department itself, you're most certainly going to see that integration of staff and some of that flexibility. More corporately with our admin assistants, we're seeing that a broader review probably would be required to take a look at where we can find those efficiencies, but at the same time accommodate some of those things as well. One of the interesting things that you may have picked up on in Karen Black's presentation today was the salary savings Laura's been able to achieve in the admin department. That was very intentional in terms of when we've had a couple of retirements or folks leave, we have not filled those vacancies. So you may have heard me talk to a committee in the past about where we have a strategy to not fill vacancies or only fill on a contract basis. Those are the things we're doing to give us the flexibility to help us respond to a changing work environment. Not planned, but it will work well and help us deal with challenges we're going to face with COVID-19 as well.
Thank you very much, Paul. And I assume it will help with some of those financial pressures we'll be looking at as well moving forward. So item number 2 is the planning allocation. And just wonder if committee has any questions or comments on that. My only question was, is this an increase, decrease, or status quo for the funding allocation for social or Ontario Works?
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. The Ontario Works budget is being held at the 2018 actuals, and that applied in 2019 and 2020. So we have not received additional funds for operating from the province. What is additional is this business case. And the business case allows us an additional $300,000, which is cost shared with the County of Renfrew and the City of Paris.
Thank you for that, Laura. Any other questions? Seeing none, item 3 is the Social Services Relief Fund, Phase 2. Seeing no questions on that, and I think Laura will bring us information as it becomes available. Item 4 is the support for universal basic income. And I'm just wondering if, oh, sorry, Councillor Giacono, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. In regards to the universal program, I think this would be very similar to the CERB program that's in place. You know, I've been talking to many people that are in businesses that are struggling, and they're saying that a lot of people don't want to go back to work when they can stay at home and, you know, collect the benefits that are being given to them pending the circumstances. I think the universal program, the funding that's suggested, might be better spent in supporting businesses and industries that are struggling at the present time to keep their doors open, to create additional employment for those people who may be in that specific, you know, that specific a specific category of finances, to get them back to work, to provide them with a decent wage. I think that money would be better spent there than producing another item that would increase and produce another crutch for people to fall back on. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, you know, people shouldn't have that, but I think, you know, people that are working feel much better about themselves. You know, they're out there socializing with other people. They're doing something creative and, you know, constructive for our society as a whole. So I know that a number of municipalities are thinking that this is a good idea, but personally, my opinion is money should be spent in a different venue, should be assisting businesses. You know, again, we're looking at where does this money come from for the program. It comes from the three spheres of government, federal, provincial, and municipal. And I think, you know, if we look at our tax bills, I think we have enough to bear. So I think that should be rerouted in a different way. And I think there should be some creativity by the, you know, the federal and the provincial government and even the municipalities to contribute to some sort of a program that would support business and industry within their communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Giacono. Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Laura, this is the first time that I heard that universal basic income involved the municipal tax base as well. So that did surprise me. So when the Liberal government had the pilot program, was that not solely based funded by the province as opposed to the municipalities that were involved in the pilot, or am I mistaken there?
Yes.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to committee and Warden Robinson. The Ontario Basic Income pilot was strictly a pilot, and it was funded separately in terms from the provincial dollars. It was funded just for a short time period. And if I may, you are correct. It is hard to know what the final tax spending is going to be because there are very different models that are out there. Some models speak to federal, provincial funds. It refers to reduce in transfer payments to the municipality because of the funding being redirected to basic or to a universal income. So it depends. I really can't speak to how it would look in a final way. I think the parliamentary Office of the Parliamentary Officer report speaks to different funding, including municipal funding as well. It's hard to know what would be the final funding decisions. I would hope that the municipality would have the least amount and that the province and the federal government would have the higher contribution, but it is hard to know at this time. When I looked at some of the other models that are in other countries that they are looking at, they are using a variety of different tax bases and different tax formulas. So you are correct. It's kind of a new position from what the province had done back in 2017, 2018, but they were strictly doing a pilot. And what was going to come out of the pilot was recommendations back to the provincial and federal government on how to fund it. It never did get to that final stage.
Sorry, supplementary, Warden Robinson.
Thank you, Chair. So, and, just a comment from Councillor Jackno, there's so many options out there as how this could be used for some folks. I think that certainly if we're able to find ways of improving the opportunities for employment, that people will definitely benefit from that. But there's also a portion of the people who would benefit from universal income that for many reasons cannot find employment or cannot sustain employment. And so for those folks, it's a quality of life issue as well. There's the working poor that would definitely benefit from this. And there are people who were, receive ODSP, any kind of social assistance and they're just barely surviving. So I don't know that the, universal income is the basic income is the way to go, but I do hope that there's, the province continues to look at how to help people sustain, a quality of life that we all aspire to. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden Robinson. Are there any other comments? Councillor Love?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I support what Warden Robinson has said. I think there is still a need, but if this is the sort of program that's going to end up being funded by in part even by the municipalities, the burden is being carried typically in municipalities that could least afford to do it. Because looking around Renfrew County, as has been mentioned, we would have a population that would significantly benefit from this, but do we have a tax base that can afford to pay any share of it? We're already challenged in terms of our infrastructure, in terms of we don't seem to be rural communities don't seem to be getting the grants that urban communities are getting to redo their infrastructure. So we have so many funding draws and pulls for every dollar that we get. It would be a shame to see a program like this that could be very important to individuals who are struggling to survive on very little money and who will put every dollar they receive back into our local economies. It would be a shame to see that tied to some ability of the municipality to be able to fund it. Again, as Councillor Jackano has said, there may be some other ways to do this, but not for all, as Warden Robinson did point out. There are going to be individuals who can't maintain steady employment, but should be funded at a reasonable level where they can survive in our communities and be contributing members in the ways that they can be. So I'm not necessarily opposed to this idea, but I'm certainly not keen to support it until I know exactly how it's going to be proposed to be funded, because I don't think as municipalities we can pick up this and honestly fund it at any level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Love. I'd also like to add my comment, and I do support what Councillor Jackano and Warden Robinson have said, and Councillor Love as well. And even reading an article in Municipal World, they touched on this subject, and they said that one of the disadvantages of the universal basic income is that there is the disincentive for people who are able and could, find employment to really actively look for it. Then there's the other side where the government again now has much more control over people's lives and their options. So it certainly does have its advantages, and I agree that there certainly are people out there who, whether it's a physical or mental challenge or whatever the case may be, they can't find or hold the job. There certainly would be something to be said about guaranteeing them an income that they could certainly survive on. However, I do agree that just to put in a plan and expect the local municipalities to have to support it, I don't see it how it's financially viable. I do have a recommendation that social services leadership has brought forward, and it does say it's recommended that a motion be put forth to not only support Kitchener's universal basic income resolution in principle, but to further amend the support by petitioning the federal and provincial governments for further financial supports to help businesses survive and thrive. Is that something that committee would entertain supporting? Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chair. I'm wondering if we could in some way state that that anything that comes forward would be funded at the provincial and federal levels. We could make it clear that municipalities just don't have the capacity to contribute to this kind of program. I would support the resolution if we could just make it very clear that we're not sort of stepping up to say, okay, fine, we'll fund it.
So maybe, Paul, are you there? That maybe some direction or help from Paul as to how we might word that?
Thank you, Chair. I'm mulling it over right now in terms of what it looks like. And I've been listening to the debate. And now that I've heard the debate, I'm wondering if it would be more important to direct staff to send back and get more information in terms of the implications.
Yes, Warden Robinson.
I would really like to get much more information on this. Again, I would never interpreted this to be something that the municipal tax base was going to have to fund. Totally unable to do that. Any of our municipalities. It's even ridiculous to even think that we can't even get enough money right now for our aging infrastructure, let alone start something like this. So, I would like to have more information. I'd like to know what the province and the feds are looking at, if anything, and then make a decision from there, if that's possible.
So rather than pass a recommendation at this time, are you comfortable, Paul, that the direction to staff would be just to get a lot more information and bring something back to either committee and or county council?
That would be my opinion or approach, Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
So for the minutes, if I may, Chair, the minutes read that the staff to undertake additional research to understand the financial implications and provide committee at a future meeting with more detail with respect to any future initiative with respect to the basic income for residents.
Thank you. And I'm seeing the nodding of most of the committee's heads. So I think that's the way we will go. Thank you, Paul. So item number 5 is Protecting Tenants and Strengthening Community Housing Act. I believe that was just the letter that Steve Clark sent. Are there any further questions or comments on that? Seeing none, then the item number 6 was the temporary pandemic pay. And that was just correspondence from Municipal Affairs and Housing confirming that the county will not be receiving the funding for the temporary pandemic pay. I believe everybody had seen the letter that the warden had sent and the response from the warden. So are there any questions or further comments on that? Item number 7 is the treasurer's report. Seeing no questions or comments, then we will move on to item 8, which is the Ontario Works Division report. And if Andrea is with us, then I will ask her to present that report.
Thank you, Chair Brose. Through you to committee. Good afternoon, everyone. The Ontario Works report starts on page 26 of your electronic report. And item number 1 is the Ontario Works caseload statistics. So you'll note that for the last couple of months, May and June, our caseload has started to decrease. And I just wanted to speak to you a little bit about some of those numbers. So first of all, one of the reasons for the decrease that we're seeing can be accounted for the Canada Emergency Response benefits, the federal financial supports. Once they started to come out, some of our clients were able to qualify for those benefits and exit Ontario Works. But we also did assist a lot of community members through the Ontario Works Emergency Assistance. And emergency assistance is a one-time benefit.
Oh,
That's paid.
Excuse me, Councillor Reinwald, you had a comment?
Thank you, Chair Rose. I'm just wondering that, I don't know if anybody else is having difficulty hearing Andrea. I can barely hear you, but it's quite muffled. I'm just wondering if anyone else is having difficulty.
I'm seeing everybody giving the thumbs up, so I guess it's just you, Councillor
Put my
Reinwald.
ear a little closer.
Oh dear. Okay, well, I will try to speak up a bit.
That's much better.
Okay, I had noticed when Director Lepine was giving her report, some of the internet at the cab was going a little bit haywire, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen here, but I will try to speak up. So I was just referring to speaking a little bit about emergency assistance. So emergency assistance is a one-time payment that is issued through Ontario Works to individuals who are in an emergency or a crisis situation. And it is available for people who are in a crisis, but who may not necessarily meet eligibility levels, may not meet income and asset thresholds in order to qualify for regular Ontario Works assistance. And when people receive emergency assistance, they do not come onto the program as an ongoing client. It's a one-time payment. So those numbers, when we assist people through emergency assistance, do not reflect in our caseload totals. So we did have a lot of people that were assisted through emergency assistance throughout the pandemic. Between the period of March to June 2020, we assisted 157 people with emergency assistance. And in comparison to the same time period last year, so March to June of 2019, we only assisted 14 people through emergency assistance. So I just wanted to share with committee that there was a lot of assistance provided through emergency assistance. And as I say, that those numbers don't appear in the caseload statistics because they are one-time payments. Normally, emergency assistance is a one-time payment that provides up to 16 days of entitlement to help a person through the crisis. However, the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services did make a change at the beginning of the pandemic to allow us to provide the emergency assistance for up to 48 days. So it did give people a larger payment and to cover a larger window. Moving on to item number 2, the homelessness prevention program. So this has been a busy time for the homelessness prevention program, as of course many residents have fallen behind with household bills, their rent or their hydro, heat bills, those types of things. And the homelessness prevention program is delivered by Ontario Works staff in partnership with Renfrew County Housing Corporation. And we were very pleased to be able to assist 99 individuals or families throughout May and June with funds to help them stabilize their housing. Item number 3, I just wanted to give a brief operational update to committee on where we're at currently at this state in the pandemic with Ontario Works. So a number of the measures that the ministry did put in place at the beginning of the pandemic to streamline operations and allow staff to focus on activities to assist residents have remained in place. So they have continued to waive the requirement for signatures on application documents. They have continued to have many of our system pensions turned off just to ensure that the benefits continue to flow without interruption. And our special benefits, recurring monthly benefits like the special diet allowance or the diabetic diet allowance have been automatically extended by the ministry and not requiring a person to go back to a doctor to have some of those benefits reconfirmed. So we continue to operate in that state. As Carol Neal had mentioned earlier in her report, our offices do remain closed to the public, but we're fully serving residents through internet and telephone. And we've been able to, I think Ontario Works staff have done an excellent job with reaching out to people and helping to meet the needs of the community through this time. The ministry has indicated that they will slowly start to reintroduce some of the requirements in September, with starting to turn them back on, some of the suspensions, with lots of notice being given to recipients. Moving on to item number 4 is regarding the treatment of the one-time old age security and guaranteed income supplement payments. So there were some special payments that went out to seniors at the beginning of July, $300 special payment for recipients of old age security, and a $500 payment to individuals who are in receipt of old age security and the guaranteed income supplement. And although these sources of income are normally income deducted as dollar for dollar from Ontario Works entitlement, these special payments were fully exempt as income in order to allow any seniors in receipt of Ontario Works and Ontario Disability Support Program to benefit from these additional payments. Item number 5 is the COVID-19 Energy Assistance Program, or CEAP as it's being called. I had mentioned this to committee earlier at the start of the pandemic about the announcement of this new energy assistance program. And they have just finalized details and opened up applications as of July 13th. This is a program that is being run through the Ontario Energy Board, and it's giving a credit of $115 for residents, or $230 if you heat with electricity, for low-income recipients to have a credit on their hydro or natural gas bill. So we are expecting now that the disconnection ban for utilities was lifted at the end of July, we are expecting to see notices going out to recipients with disconnection notices first week of August. And we are pleased to be able to have another program that will help residents be able to catch up with some of their utility bills. Moving on to item number 6, this is a pilot program being run by the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, the Social Assistance Mental Wellness Initiative. So the ministry has contracted with Morneau Chappelle to deliver internet-based cognitive behavioral therapy to Ontario Works clients. So cognitive behavioral therapy is a common form of therapy used to treat mental health conditions, including anxiety, depression, and stress, and helps recipients work towards developing more positive relationships between their thoughts, behaviors, and emotions. And in this pilot, Ontario Works clients will have the ability to work through a series of online modules while having access and support from a clinician for a period of up to 12 weeks. So we're very pleased that this is an option for our clients in Renfrew County. As committee is aware, certainly, many individuals do struggle with mental health issues, and the treatment options are often limited. So we are very pleased to have the opportunity to refer our clients to this treatment. And since this was launched in July, our caseworkers across Renfrew County have referred a total of 32 clients to this initiative. So we will be pleased to follow this pilot. The ministry has indicated that they will run this in the pilot and accept referrals through until February of 2021. And then they will look at assessing outcomes to determine if there's been improvements in mental health, whether recipients have been able to exit Ontario Works maybe more quickly, and whether employment outcomes have improved. So we'll be pleased to be a part of this and hope that this is a positive source of support for some of our recipients who are struggling with mental health issues. The next item, number 7, is another pilot program that we're involved with the Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, the Social Assistance Digital Application. So again, I had brought this to committee's attention back in the winter that the County of Renfrew had been selected to participate in this pilot program. But the ministry then, of course, when COVID hit, this initiative was put on hold. So they've recently taken it off hold and are going to work with us and a few other offices on testing out a new digital application for social assistance. So the ministry's goal with this is they would like to change the current online application for social assistance, which is thought to be quite cumbersome, time-consuming, and not very user-friendly for applicants to complete. And they're hoping to create a more streamlined application for social assistance with a digital signature and have that come in a more streamlined way into the social assistance offices. So they hope that the first iteration of this digital application will be available to be launched in September, with hopefully full rollout expected for winter of 2020-2021. So I will certainly keep committee informed as to the progress and developments with this digital application. Item number 8 is the Business Technology Network meeting, which I attended on June 24th. So the BTN is a group that provides feedback and input to the ministry on technological changes and improvements. And as I had mentioned to committee previously, this COVID pandemic has accelerated many of the ministry's plans for modernization. And as a result, some of the technological changes through our social assistance management system, through SAMS, have had to have their timeframes moved up in order to keep pace with the new initiatives that the ministry is wanting to roll out. So I had just included a little bit of information for committee about some of the upcoming technological advancements that they are working on through SAMS, including a document upload feature into SAMS, a paperless dental card, and centralization of third-party records and payments. So those would be payments going out to vendors or landlords. Item number 9 is about the conclusion of the emergency benefit. So as committee may recall, the ministry introduced a new benefit, the emergency benefit, back in March. It was initially rolled out to be a one-time benefit to be offered to recipients in March and April, to help them cover additional costs related to COVID, such as additional cleaning expenses or personal protective equipment. And it was later changed to be an ongoing monthly benefit for the 3-month period of May, June, and July. And this benefit was $100 for singles and $200 for families. So the memo that's attached as the first appendix is just confirmation from the ministry that this benefit has ended and will not be extended further. And the final item in my report is number 10, a thank you letter from Chair Brose to social services staff. So just to provide you with a little bit of background, one of our former Ontario Works staff, Elizabeth Brose, she's been retired for 5 years and recently diagnosed with cancer. And her former coworkers really struggled in this new world of COVID to how to support a fellow team member, when many of the things that we would normally do to help someone, such as driving them to appointments or simply going and giving them a big hug, are obviously not things that we can do to help somebody at this time. So staff arranged a drive-by show of support and well wishes to Elizabeth. And the second attachment is Chair Brose's letter of appreciation regarding those efforts. So thank you, Chair Brose. That concludes my report for committee this month.
Thanks very much, Andrea, for that report. So I will go back to item number 1, the Ontario Works caseload stats. And I'd like to thank Andrea for explaining the apparent drop in numbers on the caseloads, but then the big increase in the emergency relief funding that was provided. So certainly a great help for those people who aren't part of your active Ontario Works list. Are there any other comments or questions on item 1? Item 2, the homeless prevention program. Yes, Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. So yes, the emergency assistance helping 157 people as opposed to 14 that's a dramatic increase. I'm just wondering, you indicated, Andrea, that it was 99 families were supported through the homeless prevention program this year. How does that compare to, say, 2019?
Through you, Chair Brose, to Warden Robinson. So sorry, just to clarify, 99 individuals or families assisted in the months of May and June 2020. But we are noticing an increase in our homelessness prevention program applications. As spoken to in my report, with the ban on utility disconnections having been lifted, we are starting to see more individuals coming into us with help to catch up on their utility bills, as well as with their rent allowances. So I will bring back some more information to committee next month about the increase that we're starting to see with the homelessness prevention program with the numbers, but we are starting to see an increase there as well.
Yes, Warden Robinson, supplementary.
Thank you. So I'm wondering, are we at risk of running out of money in this program? And if so, should we be starting to lobby the province now to increase that, that funding line?
Through you, Chair Brose, to Warden Robinson. That's an excellent question. I think that we will be okay at this time, thanks to some monies through the Social Services Relief Fund. We have allocated some of those monies that have come in to go into our homelessness prevention program in order to ensure that we have the support we need for our existing programs, knowing that there will be a higher level of demand on them. Thank you.
And just to add to that, and I know I'm curious as well, because I know in our municipality, there's been a big increase in the utilization of the food bank. And I believe there was an announcement from the province recently that there would be more money coming forth for providing some additional funding for those services. And just curious to see if you're seeing a big increase as well through social services for referrals to food banks.
Thank you, Chair Brose. Yes, we were very pleased as well through with the monies that came in through the Social Services Relief Fund to be able to help the food banks across Renfrew County with some additional funding to make sure that they did have enough supplies and food to be able to support the community through the pandemic. And some of the other agencies, as part of their proposals and requests for additional funding, did include new initiatives around food and food deliveries. As one example, I know the Grind in Pembroke works to do some food deliveries. That was part of some of their new services that they were able to enhance thanks to some of the social services relief funding that they received. So I think there have been some new initiatives throughout the county to provide some additional food to individuals that are struggling, or to even transport food to people that are maybe not able to get them and pick them up in the traditional ways. So I think that, while I don't know the statistics of the food banks in Renfrew County, I'm sure that they have all been seeing, increased numbers and increased demand. And I think that the funds that they were received through the Social Services Relief Fund that flowed through us, help to prepare them for that demand and have the resources and the supplies that they did need.
Thank you, Andrea. And hopefully there might still be funding as we move forward and start coming out of COVID, because people who don't have a job to go back to because of businesses that have shut down will probably be coming to food banks as well, looking for some help. Item number 3 is the operational update. And once again, it's to streamline the provision of financial assistance to community members that need that extra support. So hopefully some of the technological changes will help in improving the efficiencies. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Andrea?
Yes, thank you, James, or Chair Brose, excuse me. With SAMS, things have been operating a lot more stably than in past. I know some of the things that have been turned off have been things like income reporting requirements. So if clients have not submitted, say, an income reporting card, their file would not suspend at this time. Now, given that we are still continuing to encourage, as our other offices, the submission of the proper income documentation, and many have continued with the regular routines of sending that in. So some of the safeguards around turning off suspensions in the technology has just been to ensure that there wouldn't be high numbers of benefits suspended at this time. But we have had, a great continued response to many of our recipients, who have previously submitted documentation electronically, either by email or taking a picture and texting that information into their caseworker. We previously had fairly high numbers of people submitting documentation that way, but the pandemic has encouraged more people to start using those means to send in information to us. So we've still been able to receive the information that would be required in regular times. So there hasn't been huge changes in how we've been able to process, entitlements for individuals.
Thanks, Andrea. Moving on to item 4 is the treatment of the one-time old age security payment for seniors. Any comments? Seeing none, item 5 is the COVID-19 Energy Assistance Program, which Andrea has pretty well given us the explanation and details on that. And I'm sure there'll be a number of people that'll be able to utilize that. Any other questions or comments? Item 6 is the Social Assistance Mental Wellness Initiative. I think this was an excellent service or initiative that the government put in place, because I think that sometimes our individuals or residents that are on social services are isolated to begin with, and then in addition to COVID are even more reluctant, and there's more fear and mental stress with going out in the community. So I think this is certainly a great initiative. And when I found out that we had, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there were 34 applicants for the to take advantage of that program. I think it certainly tells us that there is a need for it. Did I have the number right? Was it 32 or 34, Andrea?
Here, Rose, it was 32.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments on that, we will go to item 7, which is the Social Assistance Digital Application. Seeing no further comments or questions. Item 8 is the Business Technology Network meeting. And once again, it looks like SAMS is going to be looking at making some changes and improvements, and that's good news. And I'm glad to hear that it's working much better. I know there certainly were some challenges early on. Item number 9 is ending the emergency benefit. And I think that was explained in the report. Seeing no questions or comments on that. Item 10 is a letter of thanks, and I just can't say enough about how staff reached out in support of my sister. So thank you so much. So that concludes the Ontario Works report, which brings us to our Child Care and Early Years Division report. And I welcome Judy to present her report.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. Thank you, Chair. My report begins electronically on page 32. It is a short report, but item number 3, which is the first sort of item of information for you, as we don't have any statistics available right now, really does speak to what we've lived through since March. And that includes opening up emergency childcare, moving into stage 1 of reopening, stage 2 of reopening, and now we're prepared for September 1st for actual fully reopening. It's been a very, very busy couple of months for my staff and our childcare providers. And I just want to say kudos to all of them for working as hard as they have been working, and to the families for being as patient as they've been through all of this. Item number 4 is a resolution, and the resolution reads that the Social Services Committee recommends to County Council the approval of Lori Baird providing professional development training to early on and licensed childcare providers through 2020 utilizing capacity funding, and the amount will be about $9,300. Lori has been a part of our team unofficially for the past 2 years. Recently, she held a Zoom conference, an example of the impact she's had in the evening, and we had over 160 registered early childhood educators attend one of her Zooms on their own time. And that's just really indicative of the draw that she has and the support that we have in our community for her. So that, Chair, finishes my very brief report. I apologize for the briefness, but there's a lot going on in the item in terms of the reopening of childcare, and it's pretty well laid out for you in the attachments.
Thank you, Judy. We will start back at number 1 and number 2. As you have said, you don't have the information, so we'll move to item 3, which is the child care and early on sector funding for the reopening and the cohort plan. And Councillor Reinwald, you had a question.
Yes, through you to Judy. I was just wondering, for those places that are currently open or partially open, how is it working out so far? Like, is there any main issues or concerns, or is there? There's got to be some positive along with some of the negative that's been going on here too. I'm just wondering if you might be able to talk to us about that a little bit.
I actually, the only drawback is re-recruiting staff. We've lost some RECEs that are in the system to them moving on to other positions or actually physically moving. The process itself, we've taken the lead on the reopening, and we called it being the tortoise. So we've moved very slowly. We've moved very carefully because we do not want to have to undo anything that we've done. And we've had weekly meetings with our childcare providers as a whole. The health unit has been on board and they've been absolutely incredible. Our families have been really amazing in terms of, understanding that there's a waiting process and a slow opening process. I also received in the emergency childcare phase, sorry, all of a sudden I'm losing my voice. I probably shouldn't have talked as much this morning as I did on one of my Zooms. I received a blog from one of the childcare providers from in front of the registered early childhood educators. And it was just completely overwhelming in terms of her growth and understanding of what the new age of childcare is going to look like, and keeping children separate, yet keeping them together and doing things together, and that experience. And I'm getting that sense from the system is that, we're reopening, but we're starting from scratch because this is a new age. This is a new phase, but people are really excited about it. And Lori Baird will give some wonderful capacity training support along with my staff, my team, to the childcare providers. So to be completely honest, this is such an unfortunate situation that we're in, but as far as reopening, it's a really good news story so far. Really good news. Yeah. And one of the things that I would like to add is what we're finding is that We have families saying, well, do I have to come in for my fee subsidy meeting? And we're saying, no, the office isn't open. And they're saying, oh, good, because you know what? I don't want to come in the office. This is good. So our families are feeling really supported in terms of that administrative piece that they have to do right now, which is something I'm very pleased with, because that was one of our concerns. We needed to keep an eye on ensuring that we are meeting the needs of those families. And if they felt that they needed the face-to-face, how are we going to overcome that? But the families are pushing to not meet face-to-face. So that's working out really well. Yeah. We're
Thanks,
making
Judy.
it through.
Thanks, Judy. And just to follow up on that, I know one of the challenges that the childcare centers are seeing is that some parents that had children in those facilities have decided not to send them back. And I'm just hopeful, and maybe you can give us a little bit of information. Are you seeing any problem with refilling or filling those spaces back up, or is it too early to tell?
We're starting to see a slight demographic shift in the families that are coming back. We're finding that some families are choosing not to return yet. The ministry's allowed them the opportunity and time to make that decision, although come September 1st, they'll have to decide if they want their child to return. We are finding that our fee subsidy caseload is increasing in terms of percentages versus families that are paying the full fee, which is good, because then we're able to support those families that are of low income and need that support. We are almost through actually our fee subsidy present caseload. So we decided to serve all of those families first and reach out to them. And we're going to reopen slowly and very cautiously our fee subsidy online application on Friday, just so that we're ready for September 1st and ready for any, actual true vacancies where we can't fill it with a fee subsidy family or a full fee family. So that's where we are in that piece. And it seems to be going extremely well. We haven't had any major complaints, maybe one or two minor ones, but nothing that can't be solved or explained. And once explained, the clients have been quite happy. Thanks,
Judy.
Welcome.
And I guess the other question is the service providers, because of the the period of time with COVID where they weren't receiving any rent revenue, are they managing? And will we see any of them drop out of the supply?
Absolutely, they're managing. The province has been a fantastic partner through all of this. They've listened to the service managers. They understand the funding pressures, or they're trying to. And initially, some of the directives that they gave us, they've changed. Initially, they said, no, just use municipal money. And we pushed back and said, we can't. We can't increase the amount that has been approved. And so we're able to use provincial funding to meet some of the agency shortfalls. So in terms of that piece and the budget piece and where we are, we're in a very good position right now to support the operators with the reopening. Absolutely.
Thank you. Any further questions? So item number 4 is the resolution, capacity training for licensed child care providers, which Judy has spoken to and given us the background on. Recommendation reads that the Social Services Committee recommends to County Council the approval of Lori Baird providing professional development training to early on and licensed child care providers throughout 2020, utilizing capacity funding. Councillor Reinwald, or are you moving?
I was quick on the draw. I was going to put my hand up as a mover or seconder.
Okay, I'll accept you as a mover. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Grills. Any comments, questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. So that brings us to the end of our reports. Is there any new business? Seeing none, we have no closed meeting at the time of mailing. Our next meeting date is Wednesday, September 9th, 2020. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Moved by Councillor Regier, seconded by Councillor Reinwald. All in favor? Thank you. We're adjourned, and we will see you at County Council.